I think I want to mention at the beginning, see, whenever in this room some meeting takes place, we always see the atmosphere, or I don't know what the proper word, complete informal way. We are meeting here as a human being, but not certain positions. So, the completely informal way. Okay.
Thank you, Your Holiness.
Now start. You start.
And thank you to all of our guests. What a wonderful opportunity, what an honor for all of us. From all of us who've come around the world to spend some time in the home of our friend and teacher, His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And your hospitality is so appreciated. And we bring to you our spirit of love and our spirit of openness and compassion and warm-heartedness so that we can talk about these important issues in this conference that we've entitled Abundance Without Attachment. Each of us in this room, we live chaotic lives. We have lives that are filled with work, and the work sometimes overwhelms us. We rarely stop to ask the purpose of our work and the purpose of the system that makes our work possible. That's what we're going to do over the next 2 days, is to slow down what we ordinarily do and to ask about the why of our work, the deep purpose that lies behind our vocations. And we're going to do that, of course, with our mentor, spiritually, and somebody who's helped us ethically, the spiritual leader of the Tibetan people, the world's greatest advocate for the cause of Tibet, and indeed the inspiration to hundreds of millions of people around the world, the Dalai Lama. This is the 4th meeting that we at the American Enterprise Institute have had with His Holiness. He's enriched our community. He's asked us to ask ourselves greater questions, and he's led us to some of the finest conversations in the history of our organization. This collaboration is about the big questions, of course, economically and in terms of world public policy. We're talking about enterprise, about poverty. We're talking about how to lift people up, especially those who have been left behind. And we have to start by asking what actually does lead each of us to lead the best life. In my own rudimentary study of Tibetan Buddhist philosophy, it's clear that there are 3 pillars of a truly good life. These pillars are moral living, concentrated meditation, and wisdom. Those of us who heard His Holiness's comments yesterday when he spoke about wisdom will recall that he talked about wisdom must be a critical thing. Wisdom doesn't simply come from taking ideas as given, but rather we have an obligation to examine all of the ideas that we find around us to find out that which is true. This comes from, of course, a quotation from the Buddha himself, who said that we should be like a goldsmith, somebody who shaves away at ideas and at truth, not to take things as given out of respect for somebody else, but to come to our own conclusions on the basis of our own critical faculties. Today and tomorrow, we're going to be trying to enhance our wisdom about some of the biggest issues of the day. His Holiness himself has worked for many years with scientists and philosophers from around the world. He has even worked with economists like me. Why? Because he wants to... Because he wants to come to a sense of critical truth about many ideas. Now, I want to recall a conclusion that His Holiness came to several years ago in conjunction with an author and a psychiatrist by the name of Howard Cutler. When he was asked, what is the secret to the happiest life possible? And His Holiness said that the happiest life possible has 4 parts to it: enlightenment, spirituality, worldly satisfaction, and wealth. Now, enlightenment and spirituality for most of us sound pretty much what we would expect. But we're surprised by the second 2. We're surprised by worldly satisfaction and wealth. First, worldly satisfaction. His Holiness tells us that we have to enjoy our lives, that every day is a gift. And yesterday, in the ceremony of long life, you asked the question, why should we want a long life? And your answer was, so that we can have more years to serve others. And if we can't serve others, then we should want a short life. But worldly satisfaction in a long life, therefore, comes from enjoying our lives, and that comes from serving others. The last is probably the most surprising when His Holiness said that one of the pillars of a happy life is wealth. And when I first heard this, I didn't understand. This was many years ago when I heard you say this. And I thought, how can this be possible? Is this materialism? Is this a sense that money is just a good thing? I didn't believe it. But then a year or so later, I realized that I needed to understand what you meant by what it is to be wealthy. What is a wealthy person? Well, recently, we and my colleagues at the American Enterprise Institute, we've been spending time in a place in Mumbai. It's called Dharavi. And we have some of our friends from Dharavi here. We have entrepreneurs from Dharavi who've built their lives on the basis of entrepreneurship. And I was spending time with a friend of mine who's an entrepreneur in Dharavi, and his name is Krishna Pujari. And Krishna came from a little village in Bangalore. He was poor. He came to Mumbai when he was 13 to serve tea and to build his life. Krishna and I were walking around Dharavi for several hours, and he told me something very interesting. Krishna told me that he was wealthy, and I looked at him by my American standards, and I said, "How can he say he's wealthy? He's poor by American standards." I said, "What do you mean that you're wealthy?" And he said, "I'm wealthy because I've been able to do three things: build something, earn my living, and serve other people." And that's what it means to be wealthy. And that's what I understood, finally, is what His Holiness meant for the pillar of the happiest life, which is wealth. The key to true wealth creation for all of us is to create something, to earn our way, and to serve other people. That's the purpose of the free enterprise system. That's the purpose of the capitalist system. If capitalism is not about building things and earning things and serving others, then capitalism isn't right, and we're not doing it right. And that's what we get to understand. The question, of course, is who are we trying to serve? Who do we need to serve? And the immediate answer is the poor. Over the past 50 years, 2 billion people around the world have been pulled out of poverty. It's a miracle. It's the first time in human history. And we know that free enterprise has been responsible for pulling 2 billion people out of poverty. And that's a miracle, and that's a good thing. And we're grateful for that. But there are still too many people who are poor in this world. So we ask ourselves as we open up this conference, how do we serve the poor? And furthermore, how should we understand the poor? In America, we ordinarily talk about poor people as something that's a tragedy. But you have to ask yourself, do we need the poor? Those of us who are born in the Christian tradition have a very important lesson that comes from the Savior, Lord Jesus Christ, coming to earth in complete poverty to teach each of us the lesson of detachment from worldly things. Do we still need that lesson from the poor today? What is the relationship between poverty and happiness? And what lesson can poor people teach the rich today as we try to lift the poor up out of poverty with our free enterprise system? These are the questions that motivate our first session today, a meaningful life in the face of poverty. This is our first panel. We're joined by 3 panelists who are going to discuss this with us, and His Holiness is asked to wait until after our panelists have spoken so that he can react to these ideas. Our first panelist is Jay Panda. Jay Panda is one of the most prominent rising politicians in the Indian Parliament. He's a member of the Lok Sabha, the lower house of the Indian Parliament, where he's served since 2009. Before that, he spent 9 years in the upper house. He studied in the United States. He speaks English much better than I do. He's an engineer, and he studied management at Michigan Tech, and he spent a lot of time in the private sector before seeking public office. Next, we're going to go to my new friend, Paresh Shah. He's an entrepreneur. He's an executive. He's a yogi. He's a life coach. Believe it or not, he's from Baltimore. And he currently lives in Los Angeles, although his family is Gujarati. He has a long resume of experience in business development with incredibly successful companies. His latest venture, which he will talk about, and his most recent endeavors are all about human expression. Specifically, the human expression of the universal sentiment of love for our fellow man and brotherhood. How can entrepreneurship be the best possible language for building other people up? Finally, we're going to go to my colleague at the American Enterprise Institute, Robert Dorr. Robert Dorr is the Morgridge Fellow in Poverty Studies at the American Enterprise Institute. Robert started the first poverty program at a think tank in the free enterprise movement in the United States. Before joining us, he was the welfare commissioner for New York City under Mayor Michael Bloomberg. His work is all about the secrets to pulling people out of poverty while treating people with dignity at the same time. We're going to start with Jay Panda. Jay Panda has remarks on the topic at hand, of course, but my initial question to you, Jay, is that you confront issues of poverty all the time in Parliament. You're an advocate for the poor, and you're famously one. You've seen an incredible change in poverty. How do you conceive of the good life for people who are poor, and answering some of the questions that we started off with here today?
Not just in Parliament, but also in my constituency. And if you think of Indian constituencies, they're large. Each of our constituencies is the size of a small European country with nearly 2 million people.
We're going to get your mic turned on, Jay. Yeah, you have the console here. Yeah.
Is it better now? No? No, not yet.
There you go.
Yep, better? Okay. I think it's working now.
It's working now.
Yes, sorry.
Thank you, Calvin.
Now, I was saying, not just in Parliament, but in meeting constituents, of which each of us parliamentarians have nearly 2 million, size of a small country, I've seen both sides of the coin. On the one hand, I've seen poverty robbing people of their dignity. And on the other side, I've also seen examples of very poor people that rise above their circumstances and demonstrate such dignity that it humbles you. So on the one hand, when I say that I've seen people robbed of their dignity, it's because of poor people who are struggling to make ends meet. Even though, for example, 15 years ago when I became a member of Parliament, we used to have hundreds of people in my state every year die of starvation. That isn't the case anymore. But even if you're not dying of starvation, people are in such desperate circumstances that they behave in ways that make you question whether they've lost self-respect. On the other hand, I've seen very poor people. An old woman I remember came up to me once in the middle of a crowd and gave me 10 rupees. And I know that was 10 rupees she couldn't really afford to give away. 10 rupees is a lot of money in rural India. It may be only 15 cents to an American, but it buys a meal, it buys tea, it sees you survive a day. And she said, I like what you're doing, and this is my contribution to you, to keep doing that. I've gone to Adivasi homes. These are our Aboriginal tribes in rural Odisha. Very, very poor people. But the civic sense, the cleanliness, the dignity with which they live would shame many of our middle-class Indian neighborhoods in Mumbai and Delhi. So I think it is clearly possible to rise above your circumstances, but I do face almost every day the situation of thousands of people that need to be given a helping hand to come up above the minimum circumstances in which they're not struggling so much every minute that they forget self-respect, that they forget dignity.
Thank you, Jay. An important point that I want to come back to a little bit later is that Jay's view, his philosophy, his governing philosophy, starts with the idea that the poor are not different than we are morally. And this is important because it relates to one of the Dalai Lama's most important teachings, which is the cosmic unity of all people, that we are all the same, that when you see a poor person, you shouldn't say, oh, that poor person, I need to relieve the suffering. You should say, that person is me. And in so doing, what you're doing is you're helping somebody as you help yourself. This is a unifying teaching and something that I think you pointed out really well in these opening remarks. Paresh, you specialize in entrepreneurial development and coaching business leaders. You're helping a lot of people who are very wealthy to understand what's written on their hearts, which is an important thing to do. How to create value for people that goes beyond material things. Is wealth an asset when you're seeking enlightenment, or is it an obstacle?
It depends. I think we now have the same. Does this turn off?
We'll get it turned on just here in a quick sec.
Hello? Yes? Is it working?
No, not yet.
Yes?
There we go.
There we go. Thank you. So is wealth an asset or a liability on the balance sheet of life?
Indeed.
It all depends, in my perspective, on your relationship, your perspective on wealth. When I was born in India and moved to Washington, D.C. when I was 1, and I bought into wealth as materialism, as holding, as competition, as getting ahead, and there was always an underlying dissatisfaction with that. And several years ago, I woke up to consciousness, which is now my new passion, and the pursuit of love and happiness and human flourishing, combining science and technology and business. And what I realized is wealth can truly be an asset, provided we view it as energy. Everything is energy. We see it from a quantum physics perspective. Everything is energy. Wealth, money, love, it's all energy. And if we see wealth as energy, it must flow. Like any circuit, wealth must flow. And when we have a relationship with wealth, financial wealth, either as entrepreneurs, executives and leaders, or leaders in government, the key is understanding that as we have that prosperity personally and we share it, then the truths from various spiritual traditions come to light, which is as we share, more just comes. And people who are of heart and who are of compassion, we are vessels for then sharing that wealth, distributing it to those causes, those people, to create employment, to lift, heal, inspire, and create joy even. We need more fun in the world. We need more happiness. We need more joy. People are really depressed. They're numb. They're disconnected. Despite the fact that we're all on our devices connected all day, the research now shows people are more disconnected than ever, and they're more depressed than ever. So what do we do about it? Those of us who are in the power of distributing wealth, I don't believe necessarily in governments redistributing wealth. I truly believe in free enterprise and entrepreneurship as a vehicle for doing that, either through microloans, organizations like Kiva or Grameen. As we have wealth, acknowledge that that's an asset that we are here to redeploy and circulate. And in my own personal experience, as I've become a student of consciousness and studying the various teachings of great teachers such as His Holiness, I find that the more I give, the more I distribute, the more I let wealth and prosperity flow, it just keeps coming. It just keeps coming. And when we bottle it up for fear of scarcity, for our own personal storage, rather than see that we are all connected. We are energetically all connected, and physics is also showing this through phenomenon such as mirror neurons, where our brains are all now mirror neuroning one another, or quantum entanglement, that our sharing of our wealth and prosperity flows back to us in an unexplainable, magical way.
Paresh has many, and there's a lot to think about there, and there's a lot that we're going to be able to think about over the next couple of days. But it's worth pointing out that your concept of wealth as a flow and not a stock is important. The idea of having wealth pass through you and all good things pass through you as you lift other people up, as opposed to simply accumulating these things, I think is probably central to the concept that you're trying to make.
That's correct. That's correct. Part of what I've learned from teachings such as His Holiness is this notion that our inner world shapes our outer world. When we have inner hygiene, when we see ourselves, for instance, when we operate from a place of scarcity, fear, lack, or disconnection from others, then the tendency is to hoard, to keep, to not share, because it's coming from fear. As we clear out those emotions, clear out those moods, clear out those stories through practices such as meditation, through practices of giving, then we realize that the outer world shifts as well. The outer world changes, and we can literally, through our own perspective, change the perspective with which we see the world and see others. And what's beautiful is the universe then delivers exactly what you need, exactly when you need it. It just shows up. The right people show up. Beautiful people show up in your life. Money shows up. Opportunities show up. And when we share that with people who are impoverished, there's many ways to help and share. Wealth to me is not just financial wealth. It's it's physical wealth. It's being healthy. As I've been practicing these teachings of spirituality and meditation and internal hygiene, emotional hygiene, I feel 20, 30 years younger. So it's physical health. It's health of relationships. We don't get angry with one another. We don't judge one another. We see the connected humanity of all of us. And I play games now of wealth. It's, okay, how can I touch everyone? Can I make this person laugh or smile? Or do I give them a sandwich? Or do I give them money? And sometimes it's the smile and the dignity, and simply listening to someone is the greatest wealth you can share. Or sometimes it's money. And so with the practice of internal emotional hygiene, we can know which aspects of our own wealth we should then flow to others, whether it's building a company that's all about love, that can touch billions of people, or whether it's simply listening to a poor person on the streets of Bangalore talk about their family and share their life. So it's really about flow, and it's energy like anything else. Energy must flow. It's a continuum, and the more we see ourselves as vessels for flow, we have the discernment on what to do as executives and leaders.
Robert, you've worked with poor people your whole life. You, in New York City, you designed programs to lift people out of poverty. Tell us, in your experience, Paresh is talking about giving people what they need the most. You've been working through government programs to lift people out of poverty. What do the poor truly need?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that I did not grow up in poverty, and I've never lived any part of my life in poverty. In fact, I'm among the luckiest, a full-fledged member of the American upper middle class in the late 20th century. But I have spent the last 20 years of my life working in programs helping struggling Americans. And I've listened. And what I've heard, and I think the most significant message I heard, was we were gathering around with a bunch of people who were involved in programs to help the poor, who had their own solutions and their own idea, their own technique, their own trick. And we had someone who was speaking to us who had come out of prison twice and failed twice, and been back in prison, and had struggled and faced hardship and substance abuse and alcoholism and disconnected from his family, real hardship. And the question came, but he now had sort of gotten his act together. And someone said to him, well, what was the key? And all these programmatic people leaned in because they were hoping that he'd say, you know, it was that solution or your idea. And he said, I finally realized that I could do it. And I think that when he said that he understood that the key was him, it isn't just to say that it comes from the individual and it takes personal responsibility, because that is not sufficient, but it is essential. And I think to deny that dignity, that humanity in people we are trying to help is to hurt them. So the first thing that I heard was treat people as assets, treat people as people who have something to offer, not as someone we need to manage or care for or protect, but as someone who can, through their own humanity and their own dignity, their own personhood, give to the rest of us. Start there, and then provide assistance in labor or work. There is a need for a safety net and security, but you have to begin with responsibility first.
Your message is dignity and personal responsibility, that every person is capable of those things. Again, this gets back to what Jay said. We're really all the same. And remembering that people are the same and capable of the same dignity and capable of the same personal responsibility. Do you agree?
Not only capable, but we need to expect. If you expect nothing from your fellow citizen, you'll get nothing. If you expect a lot, if you look for that inner humanity in everyone you deal with, then you'll get it. So it's not just saying you can do it, it's saying you will do it if you accept that responsibility.
You said something else I want to talk about just for a second before we turn to His Holiness. You basically said that the biggest mistake that we make is looking at people who are poor and treating them like liabilities to manage. And you said they're not. They're assets to develop. Is that true?
That's absolutely correct. If you treat people as if they're a population to be shunted or moved or placed here, that you take on for them their humanity. You say, I, me, I'll help you. Then you're off to the wrong start right from the beginning.
Your Holiness, what do you say based on what you've heard so far?
I think basic thing is we are living being. By nature, is we have the experience of feeling pain, pleasure, joyfulness, like that. So on that basis, even insect, even I think the mosquitoes, with that sort of feeling, this is some sort of knowledge. You see, what is the best opportunity? A little bit dark. Then target. You see, they are usually not come here, but it's more soft. So they know. So because of that feeling, that experience, you see, all movement come for their survival. Each one loves their own life or existence. They love their existence. So then the different level of brain is a more comparatively different intelligence. Then we, I think, most intelligent mammals. So that's the way you see the world exists, and the world change for better, like that. So now we really, as we are human beings, we are a social animal. And everyone wants happy life, do not want suffering. Yet, a lot of suffering. Our own creation. Now we have to think, what's wrong? Is there any possibility to reduce this man-made problem? We have to work. If there's no way to overcome this problem which we created, then nothing can be done, right? But there is a possibility. Change that. There is man-made problem, not out of warm-heartedness or sense of because of the sense of love, sense of concern of others being. This problem not come that way. But these anger, hatred, extreme self-centered attitude. So this now we have the ability utilize our intelligence properly. Short-term interest, long-term interest, and wider perspective. Other animals cannot do that. We can do. So if we properly utilize our intelligence, then we know anger, hatred, you see, immediately destroy our peace of mind. And constantly experience these things, your physical also ruined. And also, you see, there's a warm sort of atmosphere in your own home. Constant anger, constant sort of anger, your own home. Then gradually destroy peaceful home, friendly home. So I think home means, you see, you feel something comfortable and reliable. Reliable solid. You can rely on something. So that's the real meaning of home. If home, some tense, some suspicion. Actually not home. So these, I think even cats is my have. I have one small cat. Now become very old now. She loves his own sort of the place where she can sleep. So she considers as her home. So as a human, as a nature, you see, we have to build happy home. Then ancient time, each individual, they have to find something rocks or some cave. Now, today, 7 billion human beings. Big cities like New York, these big cities, actually your home. Sometimes you see these big cities brings more anxiety, more fear, isn't it? I think
You're talking about my home.
So you see, happy city. City means combination of millions of homes. Each home, happier home, peaceful home. Then the whole city will be happy home, isn't it?
Yes.
So we have to think. Then further goes, you see, the American future depend on other part of the world. American alone, you see, cannot. So therefore, we have to sort of think humanity. 7 billion human beings. So I always say, believe, and also you see, share with people. Now we need, time come, to promote sense of oneness of 7 billion human beings. That's a fundamental sort of also the way of thinking. Then, say, eventually, it naturally should develop. There's a possibility to develop. It's a sense of concern of others' well-being, because we are same. I want happy life, do not want suffering. They also have the same right. So now, today, in spite of a lot of material development and technology, wonderful technology, or science, and modern education, but a lot of problem. Every sort of news, every moment, news, killing. Some negative thing. Now, this very moment, I think some part of the world, killing. Killing by lightning or flood. Well, that's something different. But killing by weapon, by human being. Human being killing another human being's life. Unthinkable. And especially in the name of religion. Religion is actually the source of love. All major religious tradition, their main message is love. So that very source now becoming further division and anger or hatred, like that. So now that I feel the 7 billion human being, except I think 2 children, small children, that's different. Otherwise, I think entire 7 billion human being have our common responsibility to build happy world. I think you, most of them, you see the American, and you also, you see, spend a lot of time in America. Although your physical come from India. So there's signs still carrying, you see, your nose, your color of your hair. I really feel, you see, America, the other day, is one interview, you see, with my old friend. So I mentioned American. I think generally speaking, it's quite open-minded. Reason. My own, minded life institution and serious discussion with Eastern, mainly Indian ancient psychology and modern psychology and ancient Indian sort of philosophical thought, like the Shunyata, concept of Shunyata, and the Pratityasamupant. You see, with modern sort of philosophical views, quantum physics, these things, really many similarities. Here's this very institution, you see, initiated by some American friends, some American scientists. Then gradually some European scientists also now showing. Indian also now gradually showing what type. Pandit Nehru, you see, expressed India like elephant. It takes time to stand. One stand is quite forceful. So Indian mind goes a little bit sort of slowly. So then in America, I think around 10 cities have the name of as a city of kindness, city of compassion, city of kindness. I think wonderful. I think should start India. The Karuna is the key message of over 3,000 years. The Ahimsa, very much related with the Karuna. So India should have, you see, those big cities, the city of Karuna. But now America already started this. I really, appreciate. So now these businessmen, originally I have the sort of impression, business people, they only concern about profit, and including exploitation. Not only your own people, but other continent. So you see, I think the British imperialist and modern time, and America, I think a little bit less. I think French, German, Portugal, and Holland, Dutch. You see some colonize certain many countries. Main reason, I think, economy, money, exploitation, isn't it? Of course, these you see brought a lot of sort of education, new thinking. It's a new way of life, useful, but essentially, you see, money matter like that. So, however, I have that kind of a feeling, economy. And people more, I don't know what to say. People who very much involved with money on these things. You see, in, I think, 60s, 70s, I think very few who really showing interest about spirituality. Now time passes, more and more people now showing interest. So this is, I think, very right, very realistic. Money cannot provide love. We need love. I often used to telling the billionaire, the physical size of a stomach, more or less same. Poor people, just you see, one because of that. The amount of food, I think same. And then finger, only 10 fingers. No. So you can acquire, they say 20, 30 rings, but you have only 10. So real sort of the reality. You see, poor people and rich people, same. So a lot of money, mentally feel, oh, I'm rich, I have a lot of money. But actually usefulness, utilize more or less same, I think. Then the gap, rich and poor, when we see this, some people, sort of luxurious life. Some people, as you mentioned, you see, in the rural area, now today much better. Still, you see, there are starvation. Then now today, and these days in Africa, I think millions of people, particularly children. So sad. So if we making more effort, you see, to bring these poor people, I think world have some certain was the source. I think some source, you see, to bring these poor peoples. Now India, you see, there are quite a number of sort of millionaire or billionaire, right? And your money is put in outside. I think spend more within the country and pay special attention. Like, I think big cities, sometimes the people feel, you see, development means just big buildings or some big factories in a concentrated place. I think India, I think America, I think better. India, the cities, see, bigger. Rural area still remain same, poor. So real India's sort of development, I think, should take in rural area. Because of the millions of people in rural area. So their facility better. Now here, I think the main thing is, as you mentioned, self-confidence. I usually call, I can do. Sometimes the people, poor people, feel, oh, we cannot do nothing. In India, low caste, they also feel something, so inferior way. Mm-hmm. One time in Africa, South Africa, Kasari Soweto. See, I tried to visit one local black people's home, and the organizer arranged. And there, one black person, right, one African. He introduced himself as a teacher. I told them, how do you get the democratic constitution? So you wonderful, but mentally, it will take time. Change constitution easy, but real sort of feeling here take time. So now you know. I mean, you should know, because you should have the self-confidence. You black people have sort of should, because of should develop some kind of sort of self-confidence, can work or can reach with white people same way. Then that person is expressed to me, oh, we black people, our brain is inferior. I really shocked. And I argue with him, no. If you go one scientist, one brain specialist, if you ask any differences brain due to color, the scientists say, no, 100% same, basically. Then I also mentioned our own sort of experience. It is sometimes there are some Chinese, of course, not all Chinese. Some Chinese, look, or other sort of so-called minority, they are really backward. They are mentally or brain also a little bit backward. I think reality, as far as Buddhist study is concerned, Buddhist philosophy is concerned, I think Tibetan, last 1,000 years, I think we really made tremendous sort of contribution. I think Chinese none. So in any way, I argue with that person, including our own sort of experiences. Then finally, he, with Kaza, Uri, with a long sigh, he responded to me, now I believe we are same. That moment, I really felt tremendous sort of relief. At least one individual's mind changed now. So you see, the gap, reduce this gap, the richer side, provide facility, mainly education, with respect, not just giving, not that way. Also,
So when you actually practice giving to others, you should do so with due respect to the other person.
Or recognize same human being, and then something like that. Not like that. Clear. So the richer side, you say, help them. Education. With education, give them courage. We are same. Then the weaker side, poorer side, you see, with self-confidence, as I mentioned with this story, you see, with full self-confidence, you see, work hard. Sometimes the poor people, they complaining, and with this feeling inferior, just anger, hatred.
Yes.
So self-confidence, we are equal, and work hard. That's the proper way to reduce. I often telling, when I met some Africans, said they should develop the self-confidence. And here mainly education. So I really appreciate your organization. No matter what name, capitalism, or I don't like capitalism. but in terms of money matter, we have to make friendship with capitalists. so in any way, you are showing genuine interest, not only money matter, but more wider perspective. I really very much appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Holiness.
Through that way, you see, you can make sort of greater contribution for a better world. You see, give them self-confidence. And through that way, you see, you're sincere sort of helping them. You see, that actually creates more friends. So, you see, through that way, you see, we build happy world, compassionate world, with sense of oneness of humanity. So it will achieve within short period. I think most of us within our lifetime, I think difficult to achieve. But the younger people, some younger people, I usually call the people whose age below 30, 20, they are generation of 21st century. 21st century at the early period or beginning. So if we start work with vision, with confidence, through education, with work, I think within this century, world can be more peaceful, more compassionate world, more equal. Our generation, you certainly, I think my generation is you. I think you also, I think my generation. I think below, I mean, because of behind, above you see, 30, 40, 50, 60, we are generation of 21st century, 20th century.
20th century.
So our century already gone. So later part of 21st century, when that that period come, I think we already complete resting in the coffin. So sometimes I used to jokingly telling you see people, the younger people, I will not see, most probably, you see, happier world. But at that time, I may be in hell. But even hell, I can get some permission. 1 week visit to world. So then, when I visit world, still killing, or a lot of sort of negative things still there. Then when I return to hell, I will report the authority of the hell. Now please, hell should expand.
I'm pretty sure you'll be in heaven.
So anyway, so I really appreciate now is more and more people really showing interest. Not only interest, really get some feeling. Now this is the hopeful sign. 7 billion human beings' future depend on ourselves. So each of us, you see, should have that kind of say, a sense of responsibility and work same direction, use different profession, different field. Then I think there is real possibility, better world, happier world. So thank you.
Can I ask you another question, Your Holiness?
Yes.
Can I ask you about work? One of the problems that we have in our country, in the United States and in Europe, is that poor people can't find jobs and don't work enough for themselves, that we find. Can you talk about the dignity of work and how important it is for poor people and for all people to earn their own living?
I think lack of self-confidence and some anger or something. Then just, you see, Kasuta, prefer the society to turn themselves.
To isolate themselves, if they prefer that.
So self-dignity, at least I think, according to some of the view, which I already mentioned, if you you should make yourself something useful among the 7 billion human beings. That's the real source of self-dignity and self-respect. You remain isolated from the society and jobless, then actually waste of life. Each of us have the ability, doing something, change world, not from top, from individual. From individual family, individual sort of community. Through that way, then humanity. So sometimes we have this sort of feeling, when we look this problem, immense problem. Think oneself, one individual. I can't do. This is wrong. So when we feel, you yourself you see, cannot do much, then only pray to God. So I usually, you see, quite often I telling, expressing, all these problems not created by God. If these problems created by God, then we have to pray to God. Please solve these problems. But these problems we created. So if there is opportunity, seeing God and ask, please bring peaceful world, then God will say, I created the world for peace purpose, compassionate world. But you created these problems. You have the responsibility. You have to solve. And God will say that. God give us, I think, free will. So people utilize free will wrong way. So it is our responsibility. So since problem we started, then we are, because of doing nothing, pray to God, please solve, please solve. Illogical.
Your Holiness, would you like to break for a little bit of tea?
Yes, good.
Can I summarize just for a moment some of the things that we've learned today? Special thanks to our guests who've...
But still, we can talk. We can talk. Then tea, not to lenga doorway. But the lenga door. Come.
Okay.
Collect tea.
Collect tea. As we finish up this first session and we enjoy our tea, one quick housekeeping note: we'll have tea for about 20 minutes, and then we'll come back and convene for our next session. Where we leave things is with the theme of this session, which is that we started off talking about poverty and wealth, and what we found is that we're talking about all the same things for people who are poor and rich. The oneness of our human family is the salient theme of this session, and it's certainly the theme that we're going to go off to the next session with. We review the timing here just for... As we review the timing and we come back for the next session, I would like to especially thank our guests who will be participating in the next. I'd also like to mention that this truly is a conversation, and we'll be bringing in the audience with your thoughts as we go through the rest of the sessions, and we thank you for that. The broadcast that we're doing now, this looks like a small group, but it will be broadcast to the rest of the world very soon. So people from around the world will be enjoying this conversation as well. Are you ready for your tea, Your Holiness? Yes. Let's have tea. Thank you.